Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and filling in for Jamie Ueyama today is Christian Jackie Robinson McCollum. We're going to be talking about recruiting. Christian is one of our crack shot recruiters. He knows everything about everything. I asked him yesterday, is there any recruit that you don't feel comfortable discussing today? And he said, no. I have a handle on everyone. So that's the kind of analysis you're going to get today, everybody. So I'm very excited to talk about the show. That's what we're going to be talking about today, Christian. We're going to be talking about all the recruits that were just on campus. We're going to be talking about recruits that are coming to campus. And we are going to talk about who has been on campus and who might be joining the Notre Dame class in 2024 very, very soon. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time listening to the show, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. And that's if you want to catch our audio form on our podcast. You check the links in the description below on Apple or Spotify or wherever you catch your podcast. All right, Christian. Called you Christian Jackie Robinson McCollum. Why did I call you that, Christian?
7th grade, I'm leadoff hitter. I'm a great on-base percentage guy. You know, every game starts walk or single, steal second, steal third.
Yeah.
But the bottom of the lineup can sometimes, when you come up, the lineup turns around. So there was 2 innings late in the game when I got stranded on third with 2 outs. And third base coach goes, next time I'm going to send you. And I'm like, I don't even know what this guy is talking about. What does he mean send me? So before next time I get up, he tells me, hey, I'm going to send you if you get to third again. I'm like, what do you mean send me? He said, just you're going to go. So playing against a pitcher, some kid I went to middle school with, I didn't really like. I don't know if we liked the same girls or whatever it was, but I just remember not really liking him all that much. And I took off when he started his windup, straight steal a home. His eyes were very wide. He didn't know what the hell was going on. And straight steal a home, just in safely. It was definitely a close play in the days of if there's replay. Maybe I'm called out on review, but there was no review in 7th grade C Division baseball. So I made it home safely. I don't know if it would have been – probably would have got beamed if it was in the majors. I think we were up pretty good. I don't know if it'd be, really good form to be stealing home at that point in the game. But, I did it. Someone asked, what's your proudest memory, sports memory? So it's not like I'm just out here talking about, 4 years ago stealing home.
Yeah, so there was a thread on the ISD message board about your greatest sports accomplishment or whatever it was, and that was Christian. So, not a lot of steal home stories. So good on you, Christian.
Well, people that's why I say Jackie Robinson style, right? Because people are like, oh, well, like, was it a pass ball? Was it a wild? No. Jackie Robinson style. So that was what I included in there. So I appreciate the shout out.
Christian McCollum glory days. That's good stuff. Speaking of steals, Jamie. I'm going to do that a lot because I'm always used to doing that. Speaking of steals, Christian, what's the steal of the century is ESQ Clothing, Ga Wang bamboo dress shirt that you can get at ESQclothing.com. Do you have one, Jamie? I got to stop doing that. Do you have one, Christian?
I do. The thing is, I don't really have much of a social life these days, so I don't have much reasons to wear it. I think I have 2, actually. I think God hooked me up. But trust me, when I do have a chance to wear it, it's easily my first shirt. And my wife doesn't trust my wardrobe very often. So she's always asking, what are you going to wear? What are you going to wear? But when I break out that shirt, it's like, all right, gotcha. Then she starts worrying about what I'm going to wear for shoes.
Yeah, I mean, God needs to get some bamboo dress shoes. That's what he's got to get going. But yeah, you're going to want to check out Ga Wang's bamboo dress shirt. Machine washable, breathable, feels comfortable, has stretch, odor resistant. It's just the best. It's the best, Christian. And Christian knows, anytime we go out now, I got to get a couple more. I'm all set, right? I don't, like you said, I don't go out that often, and I don't need to wear a dress shirt that often. So I need to get a couple more. So it's just like anytime I go out, I'm not wearing it like too often, right? So if someone sees me, I'm with the same kind of people. It's like, hey, you were wearing that shirt last time. So I got to get a couple more because now it's at this point, I can't wear like another dress shirt. Like I can't because they're just so comfortable and they fit nice. They look nice. Right. And it's like a whole trend too, like supposed to be worn tieless, not supposed to wear it with a tie. Right. Doesn't have the top button. So it's my kind of style. It's my kind of thing. So check out ESQclothing.com. Upgrade your shirt game, just like Marcus Freeman.
Shout out to a longtime ISD member, Todd Stroop, great friend of the ISD. And I was with him last week when we were out at Invasion. He was doing the fantasy camp. That guy likes the bamboo shirt more than you, Greg, like way more than you. So if any like longtime Notre Dame guys, if you're at fantasy camp or you know Todd well, ask him about the shirt, and he'll tell you. He'll give an even stronger endorsement of it.
Well, then he's sleeping in the bamboo shirt. Then that's what he's doing, because that's how you get to like it more than me. So all right, Christian, let's get to the topics at hand here. We're going to be talking about some recruiting, and I think this last weekend didn't have the type of the vibe to it that the first weekend did. The first weekend was like there need to be some commitments coming out of this one. Second one was a little bit touch and go, right? And I think the biggest surprise was going into it. I think 4-star linebacker Bradley Shaw out of Hoover, Alabama. He was seen as kind of like, where does he fit exactly, right? There was the previous commitments at the linebacker position, and then you have KVA coming in next weekend. And so it's like Bradley Shaw, he's coming in as well. Like, where does he fit here? I'm not really sure if this is just an SEC guy type of thing. Sounds like that visit went really well. Christian, tell us about it. Tell us about how Notre Dame improved their chances.
Yeah. So when I like kind of like you said, when I talk to people before coming in the visit, it's not that he's an afterthought by any means, because he's such a talented player.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, we're going to get this guy, that wasn't there, right? It was like, hey, I think we got a shot, right? Which is code for like, you wouldn't be bringing the guy there if you didn't think you had some shot. But it's code for like, we'll see. Now, also, he wouldn't be coming if he didn't have some serious interest either. So there's some kind of optimism going in. But like you said, you don't really know what is this about. Georgia and Auburn are up there for the kid. He had already visited once though. So he comes back, and coming out of the visit, he raved about it. He talked about how much he liked, getting along with the coaching staff, seeing the fit on the field, academics, all that stuff. And that's one thing with him, is that the Notre Dame coaching staff has done a phenomenal job leading up to this visit in making him comfortable. Right. And like, I posted a story this morning with his coach, and his coach is like, I don't know what they're doing, but whatever it's doing, it's resonating with old Bradley and his family. So he sees that. And coming out of the visit, the same people that were telling me, hey, we got a shot, and if we could beat these guys for it, that would be sweet, are now saying we got a really good shot. Borderline think they're going to get them, right? So there's always like kind of degrees of this. Like, we're going to get this guy, we think we're going to get him, or we think we got a good shot at him. I think you're in the middle of like kind of think we got a good shot at him and think we're going to get him. I'm not sure there's a bunch of people that, in the Goog right now that would, bet their next paycheck on landing them. But, of the guys going into the visit, I think coming out, he's the one that some of the people think they have the best chance at, which says a ton about, Notre Dame and the way they recruited him this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely know how to recruit linebackers, right? I mean, they've been doing really well there for the last couple cycles now. And obviously, they've landed Rizak, they've landed Bodie Cahoon. So they have those guys in fold, they're resonating with Shaw, right? I think, like, to your point, like, a lot of people did not think this was like a realistic option, and now it definitely feels like that. To be fair, right? Like when Justin Scott went to Georgia, right, and he comes out of Georgia, and it's like, well, now like they're up there with Notre Dame and Miami, right? My thought is, well, if you go to some place and they're behind, and you like kind of draw even, and you still have those places to visit, you kind of feel like, I don't know, like you don't want to be even. You want to be in the lead. And that's
not even that. You want to be in a substantial lead almost.
Right. And so I would say Notre Dame probably doesn't have a substantial lead like we're talking about right now. But Notre Dame is a little different in that there's such a difference between, Notre Dame and Auburn and Georgia. Like they're not the same. Like Auburn and Georgia are going to be fairly similar in the type of school, the type of, the way that they treat the football program. Like Notre Dame is very different, right? And that's where Notre Dame can kind of have a leg up on these schools in terms of like, if you draw even, like you're even, but you're different also. Yep. So that's a big part as well. I was watching his film, Christian, and I don't know if you have like strong feelings about like player evaluations and stuff. Jamie called him a faster, more explosive Tavon Coney. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Just watching him, my first initial thought was, oh man, is he twitchy enough? But then like when you're only watching that player and that player's movements, you can get caught up in that because he's not like super twitchy. But then when you watch him in the scope of what he's actually doing, like going sideline to sideline and that sort of thing, it's like, man, he really covers ground. So he may not look super twitchy. And Tavon Coney was like that as well. Like he didn't have that big explosive like Jalen Smith type twitch.
Yes.
But it's like he's sitting there with 120 tackles and like 19 tackles for loss or whatever it is. Like legitimately in 2017 had one of the best linebacker seasons of the last 15 years, right? So that's kind of the production that he had. So this would be a huge coup for Notre Dame if they were able to pull it off. And so time will tell, right? He has Auburn and Georgia to go, right? That hasn't happened yet.
You're correct. So they're going to have to hang on here and battle those SEC schools. But again, coming out of it, they feel like they're in a good shot.
Right. And there's some comments in the chat. I think that this isn't either or, right? They're taking Shaw and they're taking KVA if they both want to come, right? So one has nothing to do with the other here. So we'll see. If they have a shot, they need to stave off the visits to the Auburns and the Georgias and see where that goes. One player kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum is Elijah Rushing, where people came into this weekend like high hopes for where Notre Dame was going to be positioned for him. And while it seems like the visit was fine, it went well, there wasn't a lot of optimism from the sources that you talked to about Elijah Rushing and Notre Dame landing him.
Correct. And like not a lot of optimism is probably an understatement where like if I was a Notre Dame fan, I wouldn't even waste time wondering about him, right? Following him anymore. Now that's not to say anything went wrong. It's not to say he's a bad kid. It's not to say Notre Dame dropped him by any means. It's just coming out of the visit, I was just told, I don't think we're going to get him. And going back to that degree thing, that's about as low as you're going to get other than from a source, right? So it's kind of it's obviously disappointing, right? Notre Dame viewed him like he is. He's a true elite talent, guy that they would make room for in the class regardless. So it's disappointing to come out of the official visit and not be able to land him. Same time, it's better to know now. I mean, it probably would have been better to know earlier, but better to know now, right? And, what I was told was to expect he's likely going to end up at Oregon. Now, make of that what you will. I am not the biggest – any kid that doesn't end up at Notre Dame didn't end up at Notre Dame because NIL. I'll never be that guy. But at the same time, it is what it is. The source didn't say anything about NIL. But did say expect him to land at Oregon. So if I can't say it's one way or the other. But like I said, make of that what you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a factor, right? And look, if you are a player who it's like I want money up front because I can get it. It's like, okay, that's just like a prerequisite almost. Well, then, yeah, like you're going to lean towards that situation. Now, Grant, it's not like you need to be highest bidder or anything like that. It's not. And look, he's not putting Notre Dame into like a bidding war, right? So, I mean, that's something to be appreciated there, right? Like if they've made it clear, they've made it clear, right? And that's fine. Like, and Jamie made a good point on Power Hour yesterday. Like he didn't come in the spring. He could have come. He went to other places multiple times. He didn't show up in the spring at Notre Dame. That's red flaggy, right? So look, the shot wasn't great. They came in, maybe they had a good time. Leaving, the shot is not great, right? And it's probably not going to happen. So that's just the way it goes, right? You take a swing with a player like that. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I told you I might bring up this player during the live. Let's just get the proverbial Justin Scott update, right? Because he's kind of the last one on the defensive line there where Notre Dame could add a player. What is your take on Justin Scott? I don't know your overall view on him or how you feel about him joining Notre Dame's class.
So again, I mean, I'm not like an NIL truther or whatever you want to call it, right? So I know a lot of people are like, Justin Scott, NIL guy, blah, blah, blah. I hear different things, right? I hear different things. I get, in different kind of tea leaves too, where it's like, I don't just, doesn't seem like that to me. Doesn't seem like that to me. Doesn't seem like that to some of the people I talk to. But then coming out of the Georgia visit, I talked to a guy in Georgia who didn't necessarily think Georgia was leader, but also said like he seems like a big NIL guy. Now, what told this guy that? I don't know if it was, what happened at Georgia, or is he just reading into the fact that he visited Georgia and he's also going to visit Miami next, or eventually. So that kind of stuff is like, I'm not saying he's not an NIL guy, right? People on the board are always say he is. Like, I'm not saying, no, that's wrong. You are wrong. But I'm also saying I'm not convinced of that. But what concerns me with Justin Scott is it's been such an up and down relationship and recruitment with Notre Dame, right? In the beginning, it was pretty clear. Notre Dame was all over him. He made it very clear, I want to stay close to home. So only the Big Ten schools in Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was like out there and they were like the leader. Then they kind of cooled off for a while. Then the thing comes back in January where he's visiting and he's about to shut this thing down. And all signs are pointing to Notre Dame going to land his commitment. And then he says, hold on, let me take a step back. I want to visit these other schools. Then it seems like Notre Dame's back on the upswing. The thing that concerns me the most recently is number one, the timeline of how this is all played out, and also the official visits, right? He told me before, I might not take an official to Notre Dame because I don't feel like I have to. It's close enough. I've been there enough. I might come back and visit, but might not be an official. Makes sense. But now we're taking officials to Michigan, Ohio State. I can understand Georgia and Miami. So there's just some kind of, concerns there. And it's just been real up and down from Notre Dame's point of view. So I can understand people being frustrated. I can understand people being confused. I am as well.
The official visit thing is super red flaggy to me. Super duper. Like, if you want to go somewhere, you take your official and you plan it. You do. That's just how it goes. It doesn't matter if you're 5 minutes away. You do it because it's a show of intent. It just is. And who was the last player to choose Notre Dame who was like, I'm gonna pass on my official. I don't need it. Right? Like Drake Bowen took his official. Jalen Smith took his official. I mean, they take their officials. These are local guys. They take their official. If you go to the school, you're going to take it. So I just, and maybe he will, right? I'll say this. If he never takes an official visit to Notre Dame, it's like, let's say he goes into December and it's like, I'm going to choose. I'm not going to plan an official to Notre Dame, though. They're not going to land him. He is taking an official visit to Notre Dame if he is in the class. Period.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you. There's no reason not to, right? Especially now, you got unlimited officials. So if he takes 4 and he's like a new school comes in, he can't be like, well, I'm going to take this official because I haven't been there yet, and that's my 5th, and I'm out of them. Like you can still take an official to Notre Dame. Yeah,
he is going to take an official to Notre Dame, and this is what I would say too to the NIL piece of this is it could be the case that for Georgia and Miami to land him, you better have a good NIL package because I'm not going from Chicago to Miami for free. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going down to Georgia for free. Notre Dame's different. Like, he might view Notre Dame in a different kind of way. Like, hey, that's local. I can still, it's not like Notre Dame doesn't offer money, right? Like Notre Dame does. I can still make money here. It doesn't need to be like the NIL piece for Notre Dame doesn't have to be there. For the other schools, it does. So that's why it's like, hey, I'm going to talk NIL with you guys. I'm not really talking it with Notre Dame. I could see that being the case, right? I don't know that's the case, but I could see it. Like, that's why you could talk to someone in Georgia and be like, hey, NIL is kind of a big deal, right?
Yes.
You talk to Notre Dame, it's like NIL is not that big a deal, right? So I think that's also possible. So we'll see, right? I think Mike Frank has been very kind of clear on this too. Like, this is going to be till December kind of thing. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think even if it does, not over, right? If he decided in August, I'm going to commit to Notre Dame, you got to consider it not, because it just seems like that type of recruitment. So, all right, moving on. Carter Nelson, tight end out of Nebraska. I think everyone is kind of in the camp of severely underrated player. He's playing 8-man football out there. I mean, first of all, you're playing football in Nebraska, right? Not the best. You're playing 8-man football in Nebraska. Like, to even be recruited at that point is kind of a big thing. So, Jamie, tell me about Carter Nelson, how Notre Dame stands with him. He's the only, if it's Carter Nelson or bust at the tight end position at this point.
Well, I'm Christian Greg, not Jamie.
Did I say it again?
It's all good. So,
dang it. I gotta stop.
So it seemed like coming into the official visit season, it's like Notre Dame versus Nebraska is kind of the what everyone kind of thinks. He takes an official to Georgia before Notre Dame. And again, similar sources coming out of Georgia, not saying, hey, Georgia's in the lead, but they seem to impress him. And then even more kind of came later where it seems like Georgia really did open his eyes. Or maybe now it's Notre Dame, Nebraska, Georgia. So it's something to keep an eye on. Georgia's done a good job. Nebraska official visit is next. Well, not next, but Penn State's next, then Nebraska. But this visit for Nelson was really, really crucial. Like, he got to really spend time within the program, which was something he needed. He was going to come last fall. He was part of that, all those cancellations during the windy weekend. He did make it for the following week for the finale. And that was great, right? It showed a crazy intent on his part to reschedule a visit like within a week, get there. The snow didn't bother him, all that stuff. But now, talking to sources close to him, that first visit was just rushed, right? Just get into town, eat dinner, watch the game, say hello to some people, look around campus, and you're out of there. This was much more relaxed and got to really, really spend time with the coaching staff. All of those guys made huge impressions on him. Obviously Jared Parker the most, right? And just sitting there and saying, hey, this is what we've done in the past with tight ends. This is our success. And you can say it and just say, oh, the last 11 tight ends been drafted. But when you actually go through it and show them, and sometimes you might not even be able to accurately explain why, right? This has been going on, multiple staffs, multiple tight end coaches. But at some point, it's just like, we have a commitment level to the tight end in this program.
Yeah.
Like, it's a philosophy of ours. We've had success with it. We're not changing it. We're making it a point of emphasis. And it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where we've done so good with tight ends that we get good tight ends. Now, one thing for Nelson that he kind of really did need to explain as they went through it was he's a little different than some of the other guys. He's not, built like Michael Mayer, obviously. But that allowed Notre Dame staff to say, hey, this is how we would see using you since you are different. And that really, really resonated with Nelson and his crew. So Notre Dame really shot up. I think they had a good chance coming in. They have a better chance now. I think Guy gave me a percentage, like 40% chance coming into the visit. My guess is much closer to 50, if not higher than that right now.
It's such an easy sell. Well, I don't want to say easy sell, but it's such a, like, look, man, like you said, every tight end at Notre Dame since what, 2000 and I don't even know. I mean, they all start, like, going back to like Fasano. Like, it's exactly. Like they all, like, if you start at Notre Dame, you're playing in the NFL. And not just that, but the 2019 team or the 2020 team had Brock Wright, Tommy Tremble, and Michael Mayer. They're all in the NFL. They're all starting players in the NFL. And before that, Cole Kmet was on the team, and he's a starting player in the NFL. Like, you got to tell these guys, like, look, if you're at Notre Dame, you're going to play in the NFL, right? We want you to do it. If it's not you, it's going to be someone else. Someone else is going to go to the NFL. Do you want it to be you, or do you want it to be someone else? That's it. Like, that's the sell to me. But we'll see, right? I think it's hard to, not everyone, maybe he wants to stay local, right? Maybe he sees something somewhere else. It's not like Georgia doesn't have good tight ends, right?
Exactly.
So there's that piece of it. So we'll see. They have the tight end in fold already. And so it's to me, because of what I just said, I'm not super concerned about it. Like, seriously, whoever they get, whoever is playing tight end for Notre Dame, they're going to end up in the NFL. They're going to be a good player. Like, seriously, Mitchell Evans is going to, like, I think Mitchell Evans is going to have a really big year this year. So it's, you want him. That's great. You want as a fan, you want whoever Notre Dame wants. but it's going to work out. It just does. Literally every player who has started at Notre Dame is in the NFL. And so that's a good fact for them. All right, so let's move on to Oliver Miles, the athlete, safety prospect out of Texas. Christian, I think a lot of people assume that because it's a lower rated player, that as long as Notre Dame brings him in on an official, it's locked up. It's just going to happen, right? Oh, well, he's lower rated, and so he's Notre Dame's his best offer, quote unquote. He's going to come in and it's going to be great. Is that the case with Oliver Miles?
Clearly not, right? So, as in terms of being a lock, right? I do feel like Notre Dame felt like they had an advantage, right? They're like, we love this player. We don't care if the Texas big boys aren't over him. And I talked to guys in Texas who were like, I don't know what Texas A&M are doing. I'm sure they have their own reasons and stuff like that. But Notre Dame's like, we like this kid. He's our guy. We're going after him. Our evaluation, we're trusting it. And I think there is some kind of like confidence level, right, from them, like saying, hey, we're coming in, we're Notre Dame. It would be kind of naive to not think that. At the same time, he came in, took an official visit. All accounts went well. But there's no, whispers that expect an announcement soon or anything like that. From everything I've told, he hasn't made a decision or told Notre Dame he's coming or anything. So, and I think Notre Dame really, really wanted to push for that. How hard did they push? Did they get the sense that it wasn't coming during the visit? I don't know. But I think they would really prefer if he did. Now, he's kind of a quiet kid, doesn't talk much, doesn't do a ton of media stuff. He's visited Stanford. I talked about visiting Baylor, talked about visiting Texas Tech. I know people down at Baylor were like, Baylor's just trying to catch up. They just kind of got in the race recently. Hasn't promised them an official visit, at least as of last week. Hadn't told them he would even get there this summer. So you kind of think Notre Dame, they're trying to lock a kid down while some of these other schools are trying to play catch up. Like I said, he did visit Stanford, and that kind of shows you what he's looking for. But Notre Dame at some point, they want to get this thing accelerated because they really, really like this kid. I know sometimes when Notre Dame goes after a kind of a lower ranked recruit, it's easy to think, oh, they're just settling for this kid because they didn't get, prospect X. They've been saying for months they love this kid. This kid, like when this kid was mentioned the same time as Logan Thomas in terms of the guys they love so much. So they don't just want this guy to fill the spot. They want this player.
Yeah. Marcus Freeman told Matt when he interviewed him, and you can find those write-ups on irishsportsdaily.com. You should check him out because there's a lot. He covered a lot of ground with Matt on a lot of various topics, one of which was their recruiting strategy. And I think it really is showing itself in a lot of these defensive guys, like linebacker with like Rizak and Cahoon, and then at safety too with like Oliver Miles and Malcolm Ziggler and Bronte Johnson, and the type of guys that they're looking for. They want you to be long, they want you to have good size, and they want you to be able to run. And he's talking about verified times. And I think that, Mike Frank has kind of poo-pooed that Oliver Miles has acquired there. He's like a 50-foot, 11-inch or 10-inch triple jump, which is truly like elite of the elite. Top. He's third nationally in.
I think
it's
the second longest jump in like 4A Texas history.
It's like that is legitimately like it's like a 40, like if he put up a 45-inch vertical or something. Like it's like really good. And obviously you don't do a bunch of jumps right in a game, but I mean it just shows the athleticism. And that's like you can't. There's no way to funge a 50-foot triple jump, right? So that shows what they're looking for, right? They want that elite athleticism. I'm curious to get your thoughts though on, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on safety recruiting and where it is. Like it's a pretty hot topic right now for across like all around like Notre Dame, like wherever you're talking about Notre Dame recruiting, people are like, well, I don't know what's going on with safeties. Like, what is your take on what Notre Dame is kind of doing, where they are with it, and what their plan has been? Because this is the one position where it's like, I don't know about this plan. Tell me what you think.
I don't know, is this like, what's our rating here? Is it TVMA or whatever? What is our NC-17? I talked to a source about this the other day, and he said it's a shit show, right? So like that now, that's kind of the way it is right now, right? And in terms of, we don't know what we're gonna, like, they don't know what they're gonna do, right? Notre Dame, from according to this source, on the outside of Notre Dame, they don't really have a good grasp of, we're going to get this guy, we're going to get this guy, and then we're going to hold out for one of those two. They have a lot of plans like that at different positions. It's not the case at safety right now, and there's just a lot of parts that have been up in the air. Now, I'll say this, and this is what I always say. It's a small window of change, right? I know we're going to talk about him in a bit, but I think they're going to get Tay Johnson. Right. So now all of a sudden, I know that's expected, right? So I don't think it's going to change people's outlook. But if you can get Tay Johnson, then all of a sudden Oliver Miles says, all right, I'm done taking visits. I'm going to announce my decision next month. Okay. Now it changes that quick. But at the same time, a lot of these things haven't played out the way they hoped they would, which is kind of making that tightrope a little bit thinner, I guess is what they're walking a thin tightrope. And I know Chris O'Leary is getting a lot of heat, right? And, probably, rightfully so, depending on how you look at it. But, I think that, again, this is like small sample size stuff in terms of this year, right? I don't want to go back to the history of all that stuff.
Right.
But I just know he's an effective recruiter because he's one of when recruits mention at different positions, hey, what do you like about Notre Dame? It's the same stuff, right? I love the tradition. I love the academics, the brand, the coaching staff, Marcus Freeman, the family, all the stuff's always the same. But some guys mention the position coach more often than not. And we don't need to get into the ones that maybe don't get mentioned as much. Chris O'Leary's near the top, right? These guys love him. So is it more of a thing where you need to kind of measure, engage, who are the guys that we have the best chance for? Who do we need to spend our resources in? How do we close them? What can we show them more? But he does a very good job with these guys. So whatever the reason is, it's going to be hard to convince me that he's the problem, even though he's kind of the one in charge. But again, this is kind of something that will change. It can change. It can turn around quickly.
So, okay, something we hear a lot is like with corner and with like quarterback and wide receiver, like it's like Notre Dame needs Sam Hartman to blow up, and that will bring in the recruits, right? Notre Dame needs Tobias Merriweather or Jaden Thomas to be an All-American, and then that'll propel, right? Same thing with Ben Morrison at corner. It's the same kind of conversation. Well, Notre Dame had Kyle Hamilton come in, and he was a first-round pick. Played right away, right? Was immediate success. And that hasn't led to increased safety recruiting. So what is it then? Like because I'm not saying I believe everything you say about what you just said about Chris O'Leary. Because you would know better than anyone, that you know better than me, you would know better than everyone in the chat right now. What is the disconnect then? Why are they in this position?
I think it's just closing, right? They haven't found a way to close yet. And again, you can trace back to other years as well. And I do think it's a relative small sample size. And it depends on like how things play out. Again, I know Jamie's mentioned this before. If Peyton Bowen doesn't flip, whatever what's the outlook of safety recruiting at Notre Dame right now, right? If Brandon Hillman isn't able to enroll, what's the outlook, right? So you have these little one-off cases that I don't use as excuses, more as explanations, right? Davis Andrews, Notre Dame's in a great spot with Davis Andrews. If that kid's not taking a 2-year mission, what's the perception of safety recruiting if he's coming? He's 24. So I think it's a combination of finding a way to close, finding a better kind of evaluation of not necessarily the player, but in terms of your chance at that player. And then just, like I said, again, a small sample size of stuff that can turn around quickly.
Do you think because it's tough, right? Because like the Peyton Bowen thing, like he was, it's one of those situations where maybe NIL hurt him. I'm talking about Chris O'Leary specifically. I don't know that. I'm just kind of, because it's hard for me to square. Like because I like, if you're telling me that the recruits are bringing up Chris O'Leary all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they are, then they are, right? There's no, you don't have like you don't care about the narrative. You're just reporting what you're reporting, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and you have Marcus Freeman, who is a good recruiter, right? Like, I mean, he does a good job, right? I just don't, why don't players view Notre Dame, as far as the safety position, the way they would like linebacker? Like what like, I don't understand why linebackers are so, because not just that, but Notre Dame has good, like Alohi Gilman is a success story at Notre Dame, right? Jalen Elliott is a success story at Notre Dame. Kyle Hamilton, right? These guys are in the NFL. Yeah, like these guys are in the NFL, right? So I just, it's so odd to me that they struggle so much at this position. But we'll see, right? Like you said, everything is doom and gloom right now.
Yep.
We expect him to land Tay Johnson. And well, I'll put him up here because we're going to talk about him. We expect him to land Bronte Johnson. We expect, and if so, they have Kennedy Urlacher in the class. If they were to land Oliver Miles, okay, you have 3. Personally, I would not be like super fired up about that myself.
I mean, they're not Peyton Bowen, right? They're not
for reasons that like aren't even the Peyton Bowen piece. Because so like Bronte Johnson, I'll talk about him. And I'll talk about Bronte as a player, and then you can go into the recruitment piece. But so the way that I view Bronte is he is a great athlete. Very good at, like, everything that they're looking for from a physical standpoint is there. 6'3", he's going to fill out. He'll probably be around like 190, maybe like 190, 200. Long ball skills, right? Like really knows how to play, like make plays on the field and all those things. When I watch him play safety, he is very much, and look, he doesn't have a ton of film at safety either. I've seen him play one game and a little bit as a sophomore, right? First, the fact that he doesn't go both ways regularly, I want to know more about that. Like, why not? He's not playing at IMG. That's not what's going on. You're not at Servite or Modern Day. Why aren't you going both ways? I want to know more about that. I don't want to put it as like a negative because I don't know the answer, but I think he should be going both ways personally. But like the games that I've seen him play at safety, it is very much, I am out here because I've been asked to be out here. And he doesn't, like, when you play safety, and I'll talk about Kyle Hamilton here, he has an urgency in the run game that is just, it pops right away. You see it. He attacks blockers. He attacks the line of scrimmage. He is urgent in everything he does. Everything he does. And Tay is not. Now, he's not playing safety very often. Maybe he hasn't been coached that way, right? He doesn't have a good feel for the position yet. That has nothing to do with his potential as a good safety. But it's like when I watch him play, it's like, man, I have to project a lot here because I don't know. And so when you have that, and then you have let's say it's Oliver Miles, who they would like. If you have Oliver Miles, who is a quarterback, right? He plays quarterback, plays a little bit of safety, and I will say he does play with I will say he does play with an urgency. He does. But it's just, it makes me nervous because I don't think Kennedy Urlacher is going to up his safety either. So that's what makes me nervous. So it just that's where I'm at with that situation. Tell us about Bronte, the recruit, and what you've heard on that end.
So obviously he came, I don't disagree with anything you just said, by the way. He came in for a visit last weekend or, right after invasion. And now sounds like he's not taking any more official visits and he's going to decide on, in 2 weeks here, less than 2 weeks. Obviously things look great for Notre Dame here. One thing I'll say is, like, there's been a patience in this process, right? He camped at Notre Dame 2 years ago. I remember. And Notre Dame was very upfront and honest. He told me he went and worked out a receiver, and he said they want me to come back another time and work out at safety. So, and I'm like, this is a local kid. Kid's got some decent offers. Notre Dame seems interested, but where's this going to go? He was pretty upfront. He wanted to play receiver, and I don't mean wanted, like prefer, right? But both sides stayed in touch. They stayed in touch. Came back, did work at safety. Then he came back again. Then he got the offer. and he was just blown away. Like, this is the offer I wanted, blah, blah, blah. But we still got to work out this, position stuff. He seemed to think it would work out. And there were some other hurdles he needed to take care of on his end, right? So it seems like, maybe this will trend away because, there's some other stuff and plus the position. So maybe it's just not going to end up as a match. Then coming into the fact that he takes the official visit this month, it's like, oh, wow, they cleared all these hurdles. These two sides kind of feel like they've been a match, right? So from both, like, they both wanted it. But I agree, right? I talked to Jamie about this a lot. He's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, you watch some of the things he does out there on Friday night, especially offensively. Mm-hmm. He is a phenomenal athlete. He's a phenomenal basketball player. Hasn't played a ton of safety. How's he going to do at that? Notre Dame projects him there, and that's what they've wanted him to play the whole time. It's not like, hey, let's just get this athlete and figure out where we're going to put him. They've projected him. They've worked him there, had a chance to work him there last year. So they really like him, and I would be pretty surprised if he didn't end up at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and look, he's an important player for them for sure. And going into it, if I knew they were going to get Bronte Johnson, I would have been fired up, right? It's just that pairing him with other guys who, like, to me, Bronte is like Isaiah Canyon, where it's like if Isaiah Canyon was Notre Dame's top receiver, that would make me nervous because it's like there's a lot of projection there. But like, you have Cam Williams and you have Micah Gilbert, so like, I know those guys can play. So now now it's like I look at Isaiah Canyon completely different. Like, this could be a home run. Like Bronte Johnson, like if they paired him with Jalen McClain and Marquise Gallegos, I would be like, man, see that this is good because Bronte could end up being the best of that group, and Isaiah Canyon could end up being the best of those wide receivers. But I know those wide receivers are good, right? Yes, and we don't know that with the other guys, so that's where I'm concerned. Yes. But look, so landing Bronte Johnson, that would be huge for Notre Dame. They really need it. They really need it to happen.
As far as the going both ways things, I'm not privy to this in terms of his program, high school program, but I can promise you multiple recruits I've been involved with across the country who have not gone both ways, have begged their coaches to go both ways. And I've gone to small high school games in Massachusetts and Connecticut where you have one Power 5 player on the entire field at all times, and they don't let them go both ways. And you got guys getting beat for touchdowns at the end of the half when you could selectively put these guys in for specific plays. And whether it's an old school coach mentality, whatever it is. So it could be a red flag, but it's like more of like an orangish, yellowish flag to me. For all I know, he just doesn't really he would love to play both ways more, for all I know. So I'm just,
okay. All right. Well, if it's the coaches, then it's no flag. I mean, it's a red flag for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Put them out there. Like, I don't like it's just not, I don't know. You know who went both ways? Your boy went both ways. That's who went both ways there, Christian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, like, it's high school football we're still talking about here, right? So can you imagine being a coach and being like, hey, Bronte, we need you at safety, and him be like, I'm good. No, thanks. Like, that's still a red flag on the coach.
Exactly. Put him out there. I don't know. Kyle Hamilton went both ways there, Christian. It's you got to do it. You got to do it. All right. People, I don't even know if I want to bring this up. Have you heard anything about Peyton Bowen wanting to come to Notre Dame?
I have not heard that.
Okay. Well, then there's nothing.
I wouldn't really.
I'm saying you. We don't have to do rumors. Have you heard?
No, I haven't heard anything. I haven't asked anybody. This is literally the first time I've heard that. I think someone posted his girlfriend left. Oklahoma's no longer there.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. I did see that.
So
all right. Well, so I don't want to address rumors. So I asked the question: if you've heard, if you haven't heard, we can move on. I don't need to get into something that may or may not be a thing. All right. Let's talk about this weekend coming up there. I'm going to put KVA on here, but Kingston Viliamu-Asa, he's a linebacker, top 100 linebacker or actually he just fell out of the top 100 there. Maybe he is trending to Notre Dame there. Not Jamie, Christian. If he's falling out of the top 100, that makes me think Notre Dame may be trending there, Christian. So tell us about him. Tell us what kind of shot Notre Dame has there.
So coming into official visit season, it seemed like, hey, he's pretty clear. He's got a top 3 of USC, Notre Dame, Ohio State, right? And everyone pretty much consensus agrees it's going to be a Notre Dame, Ohio State battle. He took an official to USC this past weekend, and seems like the Trojans might be in the race after all. Now, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but nobody ever takes an official visit and outwardly says that visit sucked, that school's out. Maybe sometimes like Elijah rushing situations happen. But it sounds like USC might be a factor now. Now, again, it's first official visit, supposed to like it. USC, he's been there a ton of times, whatever. I still see this ending up as a Notre Dame, Ohio State battle. And in the end, I think what's going to come down to is like Ohio State, he has the relationships, right? Like, not that he doesn't have good relationships in Notre Dame, because he does, but they were the first big school from out of, a national power to get on him. They've been on him from the beginning. He's formed tons of relationships. It's another case where he formed great relationship with James Laurinaitis at Notre Dame. Now Laurinaitis over at Ohio State, and it's kind of like a plus for Ohio State, where you've taken away Laurinaitis and you're adding them. So that's kind of the draw to Ohio State. At Notre Dame, I mean, I can't state this enough. This is a kid that gets it, right? After one of his visits recently, he told me how much he loved, the coaches, and he loved the way they'd use them and all this stuff. But what really hit home with him was what Notre Dame provides after football. And sometimes it's the way kids phrase things. If a kid is just throwing back and regurgitating what he was sold, it's in his head and he's just spitting it back. For me, he's like, hey, man, I was looking at these guys. I was with Maris and I was with Junior, and these guys, they set themselves up for life. Like, they're set for life now with the decision they made to go to Notre Dame. Like, that's what he's thinking while he's there. I'm sitting here thinking these guys have made a decision to set themselves up for the rest of their lives. And I can imagine being in that situation, looking at, you go other places, you're like, hey, especially coming from, where he's from. You see guys that were high 4-star, 5-star guys that don't do anything. So he knows there's a risk, no matter how highly you're ranked, or if you're in the top 100 or not, that football's going to come to an end. And it might not come to an end the way you want it to, but he's looking at other guys saying, man, these guys, they're set. So I really, really think that that's something that really weighs on him. He wants to major in business, right? And he does have those relationships with Notre Dame. They might not be as strong or as lengthy as Ohio State, but he loves the guys at Notre Dame. He really appreciates Max Bulla, has a relationship with Al Golden, Mark Freeman, Al Washington, all those guys. So I think Notre Dame feels good about him. Like, California kid, you're battling USC or Ohio State for real. You're never going to be like, oh yeah, we got that. That's a lock. Don't sweat it. But they're in really, really strong position, I think.
Don't discount the St. John Bosco kind of similarity to Notre Dame. Bosco is a private school, and going from a private school like that, where it's going to be very similar to Notre Dame in style and size and that sort of thing. Going to Ohio State, it's totally different. It's just like 50,000 students or whatever it is, right? Like, it can be a kind of a culture shock in that sense, right? So that's something to keep an eye on. And I should mention, like, USC is a private school as well, so he would get that, and that's why, like, Mater Dei and Bosco and all those schools, like, they do really well at USC because it's very similar, right? They're very similar like that. So there's that's something to keep in mind there. Look, we're just gonna have to wait and see on this one. It just does it resonate with him, like you're saying there? It sounds like there's a good chance that it does. And look, Notre Dame knows they can recruit linebackers. That's one thing they've proven that they can do. They can really recruit that position. So we're just going to have to wait and see. And stay tuned to irisportsdaily.com, looking for Christian's report that's going to be coming out. I mean, you get these guys, like, they get off campus and they call Christian McCollum. That's what happens. As soon as it's like,
I wish it was that easy, Greg. My wife will promise you it is not.
You get the articles out so fast, man. Good job by you. All right. Not the last visitor. Another visitor this weekend, Malcolm Ziggler, safety, who just visited South Carolina, Christian. And this is going to be, like we were just talking, this is a big one, right? If they want him, this is a big one there. It's just kind of like, it's another one of those where I think fans assume, like, okay, like, not the highest rated guy, he'll want to come to Notre Dame for sure. And it just doesn't always work out like that. So tell us how you feel about Malcolm Ziggler.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he took an official to South Carolina, and then he comes to Notre Dame this weekend. After Notre Dame, he goes to North Carolina. One school to watch here is Clemson. They've offered, but I don't know how hard they've moved on him. And I'm not sure where they're at with their recruiting in the position right now. But, if they were to make a heavy move, I wonder how that would play. But he's expecting kind of make a decision soon, relatively soon. I'll tell you this, same guy that said that called safety recruiting S show recently said, hey, we're hoping we'll get one of Jalen McClain or Malcolm Ziggler. And you're only going to get one. You only got shot one of them now that, Jalen McClain's coming to Ohio State. Right. So this is huge, man. This is it. If they can't get this kid, expect Notre Dame to expect the board to expand and not to expand quickly. Expect them to wait until the season to see some other kids emerge, which Notre Dame did a good job at. I know it didn't work out in the end, but Brandon Hillman, I mean, nobody knew who that kid was. And then, Notre Dame got in there and then they won the race. So that's definitely not the preferred method, right? They want to get Miles. They want to get Ziggler. They don't want to wait, but they're also comfortable. They're not going to just go down the list they have now. So where does he stand with Notre Dame? I mean, he hasn't been there yet. So that's always something Mike always refers to. You got to get him on campus first to get an idea. If he comes off campus and he loves it, he's blown away. Notre Dame's like, hey, let's do this now. And he pulls the trigger within the next few weeks or so. Like I said, that's how, position recruiting can turn around quickly.
Yeah, so 6'2", 200. I think Jamie and I are both kind of lukewarm, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. It just sometimes you just get it into it's like, yeah, maybe, like that's kind of how you like if you see it working out, you can kind of see like, okay, like I could see him being a good player. Whereas, there's also a way you could see it's like, oh, this isn't going to work out. Like, I don't know how good of an athlete he is. Like, he fits the size component, but is he the type of athlete that like Oliver Miles is, or that Paul Mankey was, or Bronte Johnson, right? Like, I don't know if I see that. He definitely fits the size dimensions. So that part of it. Jamie on Power Hour alluded to, like, he has this like super fast verified 40 time that neither of us see on tape. So that makes it kind of hard. Like you want to see at least close to that, And so I don't know that it's kind of hot and cold there. And as you mentioned, like Clemson hasn't really made a push, and they're really big. Like he's from North Carolina, right? So he's right there. And so it's not that I need them to make a push, right? Like South Carolina's on them, North Carolina's on them. Like those are good programs. It's not that I need them to make a push. It's just that when everything else doesn't line up, like some people had a problem with like Teddy Rizek, right? It's like, well, the local schools haven't pushed for him. Well, it's like I watched him. It's like I don't really care. Like I see it. I see what Notre Dame sees. This one, I don't know that I see what Notre Dame sees, and so therefore, it's like I kind of look at other programs then to be like check myself. And it's like if Clemson isn't, I don't know. Like, but maybe they will, right? Like maybe Clemson will make a push, and then. It's like if you don't land him and then Clemson pushes and then he ends up there, you kind of look like kind of an egg on your face, right? So that's another big visit we're going to have to check out and get an update on. And then the last visitor this weekend, 3-star linebacker Keyshawn Flowers out of Maryland. Tell me how he fits. This is one where I don't know. Like Bradley Shaw may not be soon. KVA has a spot regardless. They already have 2 linebackers. Like, where does Keyshawn Flowers fit here? Like, if he wanted to commit this weekend, could he do it?
I don't want to say couldn't, but I don't know for sure he could, right? And that depends on how things are playing out. I do think there's a difference, right? Sometimes that's how I get termed when I'm talking to sources. So-and-so is different. And I think they would say Shaw and KVA are different. It's not that they're different than Keyshawn Flowers. It's that they're different than everybody else. So I don't want to say, yeah, he definitely has a spot. They definitely take him no matter what. So I just couldn't say that. But I mean, this is a kid that's got a lot of attention. I mean, Alabama offered him recently, or like at least this spring. Tennessee offered him. Notre Dame really, really likes him, or they wouldn't be bringing him on official. That's one thing to kind of keep an eye on is like Notre Dame's cognizant of the number of official visitors they're bringing on because there's a limit. And, I know that some people told me like, hey, we want to get, Logan Thomas, for example, so that we can shrink our official visit pool and reserve these visits. So they wouldn't be bringing them here. They're not just bringing them to say, hey, screw it, come on for an official if you want to. So he's either gone. He's already went to Miami, I think. So that's another, school that's obviously being super aggressive in recruiting. But other than that, I don't think he has any official visits set up. So Notre Dame will get him on campus, and he's a kid that Notre Dame was a school that he always loved growing up. Right, kind of a quote unquote dream offer for him.
Yeah.
But I do think there are some, as you alluded to, there's some puzzle pieces that'll have to fit here for this to be a match on both sides.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I like him. It's just like another really good athlete there. He fits the profile of what they're looking for. I think he'd be a good player in the class. I would, but it's like to the point. Like I would probably take Bradley Shaw over him. Just because I think Bradley Shaw is a little bit different player that they need. You have Rizak and you have Cahoon, right? Like they're kind of similar. So that's kind of how I see him. But I look, if Notre Dame landed him, I think that would be a good take for them. He'd be a really good addition to the team, and it fits holistically what Marcus Freeman's talked about, and just kind of what they're looking for on the roster as a whole. So yeah, Christian, I think we did it. I know
somebody in the chat asked about Menke. Is he completely out as an option? And I mean, don't ask me to explain it. Sometimes we bring news to the board, and it's like I'm the one that made these decisions, right? Like, why are you doing that? Like, I'm not doing anything. Okay. Sometimes I am just as confused as you. And when we talk to sources, you don't always have time to dive in, like why, and to kind of cross-examine and try to get to the bottom of why. You just don't always have that kind of time. So it's like, hey, from what I was told, Menke is not an option, not going to be an option moving forward. Now, I think that there's probably some flexibility on that if Notre Dame wants to. Okay, I'll just say it that way. But I haven't had an explanation. I haven't had a chance to nail anybody out down and say, why aren't you still recruiting Paul Menke? Why did you, whatever. I just haven't had an opportunity to do that. But I did ask, and I was told not to expect them to continue, making a strong push for him.
It certainly seems like they were very surprised at the turn it took from Menke. And I think, honestly, I think they thought it was going to be Menke, Tay Johnson, and Urlacher. That's, I think, what they thought it was going to be. And now that it's not, I think they've had to scramble a bit. And so then it ended up being the term that you used, the poop show, right? Like it just seems like that's how it's gone. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but it just, from the outside looking in, it just seems like they thought that was going to happen. They were made to believe that was going to happen. And then it kind of changed, and maybe that just rubbed them the wrong way and they didn't like that. And so maybe that's
one thing. So sometimes you get unbalanced information, right? Not necessarily false information, right? But like, as we said, some sources you can talk to for hours. Like I've talked to sources for way longer than I should have. And other sources are very busy, so you don't get everything. So I might get more of an explanation one side of the equation than the other, and there might be a missing piece there, right? So I don't like to just it's not just going off one side or the other, but like you got a ton of information on one side, not so much on the other. But I know this, and this is, I was laughing with a friend of mine the other day about it. I know the Notre Dame coaches, they want to bring the best players in. They're making the best decisions they can because they want to win more than everybody, more than all the fans ever. This is their livelihood. So sometimes they might not always be able to explain their decisions, but you can come at it in terms of the thought, like, man, I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand it, but I know they want to win, and I know they want the best players here. That's obvious. So sometimes you just kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
You know who we're going to give the benefit of the doubt? Christian McCollum. Super extraordinary reporter for IrishSportsDaily.com. Thanks for coming on the show, Christian. This was fun. You're super busy. You have your kids. You have camps, summer camps. You're all over. You're taking care of things. So thanks for coming on the show, filling in for Jamie. Jamie will be back on Thursday, and we'll be talking probably Notre Dame recruiting stuff, because that's the type of year it is, the time of year it is. That's what we're talking about. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you like what you heard here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We're going to be putting this on our podcast feeds in about 10-15 minutes. I'm going to edit this out and we'll get it out. Check out all of Christian's stuff on irsportsdaily.com. Go over there. Great write-ups, great information. He's the man. He does a really great job. So thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Have a good rest of your day.